sections, but in the big way. They are so strongly connected, and I would like to welcome all of you. But perhaps first of all, Virlana, thank you for joining us. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Will Mia join us? Do you know? Will she?
She will on tape. We have a couple of tapes. Partly
Yes.
we tape people in Ukraine, and because of the connections, and also Mia will be with us.
So tell us a little bit about you. Who are you,
okay.
and what's your connection to La MaMa?
I direct the Yara Arts Group, a resident company at La MaMa. And today we're going to be speaking with the rest of New York theater artists about the bombing in Mariupol theater in Ukraine by Russian forces. And we'll hear from Mia Yoo and Nicky Paraiso, as well as our current resident artists at La MaMa today. And then I'll describe our relationship to Ukrainian community and artists. And we'll hear from Maria Kutnyakova, who worked at the Mariupol theater's community, and Valdemar Klusko, who created performance projects in the Mariupol port area. And in the second half, Maria will describe her experiences as she was sheltering in the theater of Mariupol during the bombing. And finally, Yara artists will read poems by Serhii Zhadan from Kharkiv. And some of our participants will be speaking in Ukrainian, and I'll be translating then, or making sort of transitional comments.
Wonderful. Really, really thank you all for putting this together, this complex program that perhaps helps to reflect the reality and the many angles, of that situation that is so unimaginable in a way for us here, but it makes it a bit more real. La MaMa, of course, is one of the great institutions in New York, founded by Ellen Stewart in the 50s. It was one of the first places to give voice also to global theater artists. I think before her, perhaps Asia Society had some probably others, but La MaMa was the one that opened the door, and we need to have a door always open, as Bob Wilson said today, quoting the Bible. And I think La MaMa is such a door. But I give it now on to you, Virlana. Guide us through the session, and we will listen to you. And I ask everybody to very, very carefully listen. This is as close as it gets. Virlana herself is from the Ukraine, if I understand right. And so we will really, really learn something, and these artists will share something that is of significance and importance.
Okay, and I thought I'd start off with a greeting in Ukrainian to our Ukrainian audiences. And Добрий день, я Virlana Tkacz, художній керівник Яро-мистецької групи експериментального театру «Ля Мама», який знаходиться в українській дільниці Нью-Йорку. Ми долучуємося до акції нью-йоркських театрів на підтримку України. And now, Mia and Nicky from La MaMa.
Hello, my name is Mia Yoo.
I'm Nicky Paraiso.
And we're here at La MaMa in support of the artistic community and beyond in Ukraine through the power of art.
La MaMa has invited resident artists Adham, Hafez, and Sophia Gutchinov from its 60th season to read poetry and texts in solidarity with Ukraine.
We are so honored to be a part of this event. We thank Frank and the Martin Siegel Center, and we are proud to be here with our resident company, Yara Arts, who will be connecting with artists working out of Mariupol.
My Ukrainian.
Slava Ukraine.
Ми з Україною, слава Україні. And now La MaMa's current resident artist, Adham Hafez, will join us from Egypt.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, everybody, for this evening. I'm very moved and touched to be invited to speak this evening. What's been happening in the Ukraine is heartbreaking, and every time I look at the news, I just don't know what to do and I feel helpless. But I also keep thinking that every life matters and every loss deserves mourning, and that mourning has become a privilege in today's world. And as we're gathered here today, and as I'm saddened and heartbroken over what's happening in the Ukraine, I must also highlight what's happening in other places in the world, particularly in Palestine, as it is under attack the past 24 hours with over 150 people injured, where the Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest buildings in the world, has been under attack with people just praying, people in a temple praying and being killed. And this made me feel like I should read a poem from the late Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, speaking of homelessness, the disgrace of war, the silence of complicity, and the loss of land. And the poem is called The Passport. They don't recognize me in the shadows that suck my color in this passport. To them, my wound is a showroom for a tourist who passionately collects pictures. They don't recognize me. They don't leave the palm of my hand without a sun, because the trees know me. The spinning mills of rain know me. Don't leave me mummified like the moon. The birds follow. The palm of my hand to the distant airport, and all the wheat fields, all the prisons, all the pale sepulchres, all the barbed boundaries, all the weaving handkerchiefs, all the dark eyes, all the eyes are with me. But the masters drop them from the passport. Is it my name that brings this honor? Or is it my love for the land I raised in my hands? Today, Job cries, the skies fill. Don't make me a lesson twice. True masters, honorable prophets, don't ask the trees about their names. Don't ask the wadis about their mothers. From my forehead gushes the sword of light, and from my fingers flow rivers. The heart of every man is my nationality. So rid me of this passport. The heart of every man is my nationality. So rid me of this passport. Thank you. And I'm sorry for your loss.
And now another resident artist at La MaMa, Sophia Gutchinov, will join us.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and also I don't want to say happy, but I think it's a great thing that we're all coming together as people in the theater in America and around the world and in New York to bring awareness and in solidarity with the current situation and all the current situations in the whole world, like my other resident artist, fellow artist said. This is a Ukrainian poet who is currently a refugee now with a newborn baby, because a lot of things that are happening right now, the women and children are being separated from the fathers, which is, heartbreaking. And her name is Katerina Babkina. And this first poem I'm going to read two. The first one is called Give Me a Brother. Give me a brother who can protect me, who can be there every time I need him, the woman begs. But the earth is silent. In the garden, the golden shoots grow lush, but each fruit hangs down ominously on its long stem like a stone. Give me shelter from peering lascivious eyes so no strange unwanted hand ever reaches me. Hide me in the radiance and reflection of your blue depths, the woman says. But the river quietly flows by. No, the river can't hide her while she's still alive. The woman looks at the sky and says, upend it all. Now fall follows summer before winter comes. There's a time for roses and a time for bitter wormwood, a place for every beast and every weed and grass. Only I have no place of my own? And the sky answers, make it yourself. You're on your own now. On your own now. Thank you. And the next poem is untitled. Don't ask me how I am. Ask me something simple. Look how quickly my hair grows now. It seems to have its own special goal. When all this is over, I'll braid it around you. Don't tell me how you are. Tell me something easier. Because here, even the smallest stone has turned into a weapon to defend its own in this war. Don't tell me how this can be true, because this is all we have now, these stones. When the bell rings in warning and the shockwave takes your breath away, even the dead rise up from the ground to defend the living. Oh, how they wail with longing, those sirens in the night. Don't try to say it, because there is no word to describe it. There is no time, no place, no dimension, no sphere. It all simply happens here and now, in markets, schoolyards, suburban buildings. After all this, what can cure us? Maybe it's love. Love can bind together the ripped edges of the wounds. It can feed the powerful rivers and streams. It can wash away the abuse, properly mourn all the spilt blood. But until all this is over, don't talk to me of love. Till the pale light of early dawn replaces the flashes of dark night. Better don't say anything to me at all. Just rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia, for reading the Katerina's poem, which Wanda Phipps translated with me. And Katerina lived in Kiev, as you know, and is now a refugee. These are poems she wrote several days ago. And I wanted now to talk a little bit about Ellen Stewart and her relationship with the Ukrainian community, because the MaMa of MaMa, Ellen, started theater on East 9th Street in the very heart of Ukrainian community, and because a Ukrainian landlord was willing to rent a basement space to her, an African-American, in 1961. She started Cafe La Mama and became the founder of American Experimental Theater. La Mama's second home was on 2nd Avenue, and then Ellen acquired 74 East 4th Street, La Mama's main building, which is now being renovated. And in the early 70s, Ellen put the roof on 66 East 4th Street and turned it into the amazing annex, which is now called the Ellen Stewart Theater. And I came to La Mama in 1982 with Amiri Baraka's Money, a jazz opera, and worked there with many wonderful directors, George Ferens, Wilford Leach, and Ping Chang. I directed workshops and performances by Native American artists and Polish artists. And one day I met Ellen Stewart in front of St. Mark's Church, and she asked me what I really wanted to do. And to my own surprise, I said, Ukrainian theater, Ukrainian poetry. Finally, she said, and pulled out her little composition notebook we all knew with the La Mama dates in it. And she said, what's the name of your show? And I said, A Light from the East, right off the top of my head. Actually, there was no show. I hadn't thought about it a minute before that. But now we had a date, March 1990, and all my projects started to come together. We made a piece about ourselves, and Lech Kurbas, a Ukrainian theater director from the 20s. And we called did a docu-dream because we made it from history and diaries and poetry that Wanda Phipps and I translated from Ukrainian. We became Yara Arts Group. And Yara performed Light from the East at MaMa, and we received an invitation to bring it to Ukraine. And Ellen urged me to go, and I'd never been. And I decided to take a look first. It was December 1990, very dark times in Soviet Ukraine. I hated it, quite frankly. And until I met one of the old actors who had worked with Kurbas in the 1920s. And it was just like a cosmic moment for me. I started seeing around me the dream, their dream of creating a new world and a new stage. And I decided to make In the Light, a bilingual project by including young Ukrainian actors in the project. And we returned in August 91. Ellen Stewart joined us for the opening in Kiev at the National Theatre. And that week, right on our opening, the Soviet Union collapsed and Ukraine declared independence. In 93, Ellen came to open a huge international festival in Kharkiv with us. And in 94, we worked with the Lviv Kurbas Theater and brought them then to MaMa, and we did a joint production. And every year after that, we'd create a new show at MaMa, and Ellen would always ring her bell and say that MaMa was the home of Ukrainian theater in New York. And now I'd like to introduce you all to somebody very special, Maria Kutnyakova, or Maria from Mariupol, as she likes to call herself. And she'll tell you about her city and its theater and cultural life before all this.
I'm Maria from Mariupol, and I want to tell you about theatre life in my native city. So the Mariupol Drama Theatre, the building that was destroyed by Russians, it was like almost 70 years history, and long time it was the only theatre in Mariupol. But after the war that started 8 years ago, when Russia occupied Donetsk and Lugansk, the art people in Mariupol, they started to do another theatres, independent theatres and amateur theatres. And in last year, we have in Mariupol almost 10 theatres, children's theatres with some kids stories, and young people theatres. They doing plays, some art stuff, some performances, and theatre for age people. And it was very different content. It was Ukrainian content, so like performances about Ukrainian history, about Ukrainian literature and others. And also it was like content by foreign authors and others. So the Mariupol cultural life was very different, but very beautiful. So like every week you could choose where you can go. You can watch one play, another play, you can go for the performances. My hobby was actress in theatre mania, and we're doing very different projects, also projects with foreign directors, actors. We have a project with Dortmund Theatre, the theatre called Kulturbrigaden, and we're doing in pandemia, when was COVID, we're doing online performance. The Dortmund children was in Dortmund, and Ukrainian children in Mariupol was in Mariupol, and we're doing Romeo and Juliet play, and we call it, it's like online game about Romeo and Juliet. Also, we have in Mariupol very big theatre and art festivals. Gogol Fest, IT stage, and another. It was very big. It was like a week with like a few theatres from the all Ukraine, from Lviv, Kharkiv, Kiev, Dnieper, and another. They came to the Mariupol and show us their projects, and Mariupol actors go to the another cities and show our stories. So you know, if you like theater, if you like some art, if you want to see some new art in Mariupol, you could choose where you could go. It's very beautiful stories. Also, we have a few very interesting components. You know, the building of Mariupol Drama Theatre was built 70 years ago, but on this place before was the church that communists they destroyed the church, and on this place they built the theatre. So it's very special place for our city, you understand? So it's been like really like theatre church now in Mariupol, and now it's also destroyed like the same people. So Russian destroyed church, and years ago they destroyed theatre. And also I want to tell you that have a lot of cultural organizations like Palace of Culture, like Philharmony, and after the war that started 8 years ago, our cultural life was very, you know, like really live, really. And we have a new cultural organization, not only the theatre. We have like contemporary art centers for the painters, for the musicians, not only actors, directors. So we have like a new art life in Mariupol last few years. So it was like, you know, like, I don't know, we have like our cultural life in Mariupol was like heart, like was, and I hope that after the war we could rebuild it.
Mariupol is in eastern Ukraine. It is a port on the Azov Sea. It has an ancient settlement from the Bronze Age, a fascinating history, and a diverse population that included a large Greek community. It had a theater in the 19th century where Russian and Ukrainian troops performed.
About history of our theatre. So in Mariupol, like 100 years ago, was very unique situation. We have Greek theatre. In Mariupol lives a lot of Greeks, and they have their native language, native culture, and they want to build their own theatre. This theatre worked in a few years, but then communism, USSR, totalitarianism destroyed. All people was going to jail or killed by communist people, and this theatre was destroyed. But it's unique situation in Ukraine. Greek theatre, they do like Greek performances on Greek language. So it's very, I think, interesting fact about Mariupol. Also, theatre history started in Mariupol like almost 150 years ago, in when Mariupol was in Russian Empire. We have theatre, and it was Russian theatre, because you know, in Russian Empire you couldn't do like Ukrainian theatre or something else, so it was Russia theatre. And so our like drama theatre in Mariupol always telling people that we have like 150 history, because it was like the one way of theatre life in Mariupol. Also, I want to tell you a story that we have very big factory, metallurgical factory, Azovstal, and people who work on this factory, they also doing theatre. So they like one day they doing some metallurgy stuff on the factory, but another day they going to the independent amateur theatre and playing like actors, directors, and other. And this theatre call it Народный театр завода Azovstal, like theatre of factory Azovstal. And you know, now the Azovstal is the center of Ukrainian army, still in Mariupol. They fighting with Russia army. And I think it's very interesting that the people who working on the factory, they also want to do some art stuff, you know, and also
Valdemar Klusko has designed Yara shows since 2011 and worked on several performance and art projects in Mariupol. In
У 2019 році ми робили Гогольфест, приблизно навіть як в квітні 20, я не пам'ятаю, 1 чи 2 число. Ми робили виставу на заводі, у нас була опера і був балет. Я займався організацією цієї події, я прожив місяць на заводі фізично, вирішував всі питання, і ми створили балет. Балет був спортових кранів. Я керував якраз рухом цих кранів. У нас був ще музичний супровід цього якби перформансу. Цей перформанс є записаний, він існує на інтернет-порталі Open Theatre.
This ballet of cranes was part of Gogolfest's large opera project on the dry dock in the port. Valdemar describes how the dock is lowered, the ship comes in, and then the dock is lifted above the water, and how these movements were used in the opera Nero.
І на заводі ми робили ще оперу. В опері опера відбувалася в Сухому доці. Це місце, де ремонтують кораблі. Ну, тобто це док, який спускається в воду, в нього запливає корабель, потім він спливає і проводять ремонтні роботи. Під час якраз цієї опери на ремонті стояло судно морське, і відбувалася опера. У нас було актори місцеві, у нас були актори з Києва, у нас були технічні навантажувачі, які танцювали з ритмом, я ними якраз теж керував. І в кінці весь цей док разом з глядачами затоплювався, і в нього заходила вода. Це був надзвичайна подія не тільки для Маріуполя, я думаю, що взагалі для українського театру і перформансу, і фестивалю, як такого. Це найпотужніший проєкт, який ми могли зробити. І з того, що я останні новини чув, мені директор заводу прислав повідомлення з відео, на якому видно, що на заводі є вогонь, там якби дим іде, щось горить, і док, в якому якраз відбувалася ця опера, він затоплений. Тобто він зараз на дні лежить Азовського моря.
The opera in the dock was the first for Mariupol, and certainly a wonderful show. But recently, the director of the dock sent Valdemar a video from Mariupol showing the dock on fire and saying that the dock itself is on the bottom of the sea. The other project that Valdemar did was included pinhole photography in Mariupol. One of the projects, they used a trolley as a camera. The people had to stay stand still for 34 minutes as they took a picture of the main square in front of the theater. And this is the famous theater that was bombed.
Про те, щоб тролейбус-фотоапарат ми робили в 18-му році, так в нас він стояв якраз на театральній площі, і якраз біля театру, і все місто його бачило, дуже багато було відвідувачів цієї локації. І ми на Міжнародний день пінхол фотографії, який відмічають по всьому світу, ми якраз зробили зйомку. І в нас є фотографія, зроблена реально тролейбусом, негатив і позитив. І витримка цього знімку була 34 хвилини. Тобто люди стояли, не рухались 34 хвилини. І видно трошки театр на цій фотографії.
Okay, so we will hear about Maria's war experiences in the Yara segment, which comes next right now. We have a ritual that starts each of our shows always. We always say, welcome to Yara Arts Group, dedicated to the theater and all the poetry, music, and images that inspire it. And today, Yara is not at La MaMa, but in virtual space. So, вітаємо з Україною. And Yara has worked with Ukrainian poets since its founding in 1990 at La MaMa, and we have worked with Adham since 2005 on a show about winter rituals and the protests of Maidan. In 2013, we worked with him in Donetsk on a piece of history about the history of the city, which the following spring became about the war in Donetsk and in Ukraine. And now this war has intensified, and Mariupol is the center of the struggle today. We continue now with Maria from Mariupol, who spoke with us earlier, and in the La MaMa section about the cultural life of Mariupol. And now we'll hear about the war, how it came to Mariupol, and what she saw and personally experienced.
So I was 22 days in Mariupol after the war started. I didn't want go away from my native city. I believe in Ukrainian army. I couldn't imagine that Russians are so crazy. They bombed us from the airplanes and artillery. They destroyed every building. The bomb came to my house, my apartment. I didn't get how I still alive because my neighbors, they died. And me, my mom, and my sister, and my cat, we are now okay in physical way. And they destroyed Russians, all the communication in Mariupol. They destroyed lighting, like water, gas. We have no mobile connection. And, you know, it's very cold weather in March in Mariupol, so we was in cold. They bombed us every hour, like you couldn't go away on the street. You sitting on the shelter, or like me, we sitting on the corridor. We didn't see what's happening in our city. We understand that everything is destroyed. We saw dead bodies on the street, and we didn't understand because we have no information how we could save. And we know that in Setre is как сказать, центр беженцев?
Refugee center.
Refugee center.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that in the drama theatre, in the building, is a refuge center for people who didn't have house after the bomb came to their houses. and we decided that we should go to the theatre because we have no food, no water, and on our street it's like street fighting. So we saw the tanks, we saw the snipers, and we understand that we should go away from our house. And when we get on the street, we saw that house near us on fire, and I didn't recognize my native city because everything was destroyed. Like on my street, every house was on fire or bombed, and some parts was destroyed. And we ran in, we saw Russian tanks with that, and we was very afraid about our life, and we ran into the theatre, and we hope that now we are in safe place. But on that day, few hours later, Russians destroyed it by bombs from the plane, and I didn't know how. And the second time, my family is like okay after that, because we have like second bomb on our roof, and we run into the Philharmonic. We have a night in Philharmonic, and the Russian trying to destroy Philharmonic by the artillery, but the building is still standing. And we understand that Russians, they didn't fight with Ukrainian army. They want to kill every citizen, every Ukrainian in the city. So they bombed like kindergartens, hospitals, like theaters, everything. Like, my apartment, we didn't have like any army people near us. They just destroyed. I really don't understand why they do this. Want to help us, but everything that they done, they want to kill us. I really don't understand. And in March 17, we decided to go away from Mariupol by walk, and we go to the little village near the Mariupol, Milekina. It's on the Azov Sea, and we go from the fields, and we saw Russian soldiers, and they said like Ukrainians bombed Mariupol, and we was like, what? Like, you're craziness. And we go to the Milekina, and Milekina was also occupied by Russians. There no food, no communications, no like gas for the cars. So we live in Milekina for days. Then we go to another village, Yalta, and after Yalta we go to the Berdyansk. This is also occupied by Russians. This is the city near the Mariupol, but it wasn't destroyed so much like Mariupol. We live in the sports center in Berdyansk for 4 days. We also hasn't food. We was very hungry, and we was very, not good health. And then we have evacuation buses from the Ukrainian government, buses to the Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia, this is Ukrainian territory. And from Berdyansk to Zaporizhia, road is 100 kilometers, but Russians, they want to stop buses like every few kilometers, and our road from Berdyansk to Zaporizhia was 18 hours, 100 kilometers, 18 hours. We slept in the buses. Not only my family was evacuated, it was 3,000 people in 56 buses, but Russians stopped every buses. They watch our some clothes, they talking with us, and we have very long way to Zaporizhia. So when I go away from Mariupol, I need 9 days to get to Ukrainian territory. So it was very long way, and I was very disappointed about everything what Russians do, and I was like, understand that I'm very lucky because I can get away from the Mariupol, but I have relatives still in Mariupol. We have no connection. I didn't understand their life or not. I watch news from the Mariupol like every hour, and I understand that they still bombed Mariupol. There's still no food in Mariupol. The 75% territory of Mariupol occupied, but 25% territory of Mariupol is still Ukrainian. Ukrainian army is still in Mariupol. They're fighting with Russians, and this 25% of territory still bombed. People who live on this territory, they died or they live in the shelters, and they still haven't food, haven't water, haven't some medical help. So like now in Mariupol, more than 100,000 people still in Mariupol, and you understand, you all watch, you all see the photos from the Bucha, from the Irpin, Gostomel, that territories that Russians occupied. They started to do very crazy things. They started to kill people, to raped women and children, and I understand that every citizen in Mariupol in danger, because you know Russian soldiers could kill you, Russian artillery could kill you, Russians planes and other stuff could kill you. So I really hope that Ukrainian army could save Mariupol, and all the Russians go away from my city, my country, to the Russia Federation and do it what they want in Russia Federation, not in Ukraine. Ukraine is independent country, and you know, Russia started the war and we didn't do anything bad. So Putin is a new Hitler, and all the world could help us.
As I mentioned, Yara worked with Serhii Zhadan, the major poet in Ukraine, and we worked with him in 1913 in Donetsk on a piece about the history of the city. In the following spring, the city was invaded by Russians, and our piece, Hitting Bedrock, transformed into a show about the Russian war on Ukraine. The war in Donetsk was brutal. There are 2 million refugees from this area in other parts of Ukraine in just a very short time. And Wanda Phipps and I translated Zhadan's poetry, including this one, with this poem, which will be read by Marina Salander, who appeared in the piece at La MaMa.
Thank you so much, Virlana. And it was translated by Virlana and Wanda beautifully. Thank you so much. I'm still reeling from hearing about Maria's experiences, and so I'm just going to breathe for a moment. Take only what is most important. Take the letters. Take only what you can carry. Take the icons and the embroidery. Take the silver. Take the wooden crucifix and the golden replicas. Take some bread, the vegetables from the garden, then leave. We will never return again. We will never see our city again. Take the letters, all of them, every last piece of bad news. We will never see our corner store again. We will never drink from that dry well again. We will never see familiar faces again. We are refugees. We'll run all night We will run past fields of sunflowers. We will run from dogs, rest with cows. We'll scoop up water with our bare hands, sit waiting in camps, annoying the dragons of war. You will not return, and friends will never come back. There will be no smoky kitchens, no usual jobs. There will be no dreamy lights in sleepy towns, no green valleys, no suburban wastelands. The sun will be a smudge on the window of a cheap train rushing past color pits covered with lime. There will be blood on women's heels, tired guards on borderlands covered with snow, a postman with empty bags shut down, a priest with a hapless smile hung by his ribs. The quiet of a cemetery. The noise of a command post, an unedited list of the dead. So long that there won't be enough time to check them for your own name. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Wanda and I just heard the news from Kharkiv today, where Zhadan is living, that it's under heavy, heavy bombardment. And now we're going to ask Wanda Phibbs, who translates with me, to read several more poems by Sidhi Zhadan.
Thank you, Virlana. First, I'd like to read Headphones. And this was published in the New York Times last year. Headphones. Sasha, a quiet drunk, an esoteric, a poet, spent the entire summer in the city. When the shooting began, he was surprised, started watching the news, then stopped. He walks around the city with headsets on, listening to golden oldies as he stumbles into burnt out cars, blown up bodies. What will survive from the history of the world in which we lived will be the words and music of a few geniuses who desperately tried to warn us, tried to explain, but failed to explain anything or save anyone. These geniuses lie in cemeteries, and out of their rib cages grow flowers and grass. Nothing else will remain. Only their music and songs, a voice that forces you to love. You can choose to never turn off this music. Listen to the cosmos, shut your eyes, think about whales in the ocean at night. Hear nothing else, see nothing else, feel nothing else, except, of course, for the smell of corpses. And this next poem is called It's All Up to Us. And Sidhi Zhadan is also known for his love poems, and this is one of them. It's all up to us. It's all up to us. You touch the atmosphere and disturb the equilibrium. Everything we've lost, everything we've found, all the air that passed through our windpipes. What sense does it all make without our pain and disappointments? What value does it have without our joy? After all, it's all about your fingers, You touch her clothes and you know nothing can be taken back. A name spoken once changes the voice, coils around the roots of words. So you struggle from now on with dead languages as you attempt to use them to communicate with the living. You touch her things and understand behind each word, behind each deed stands the impossibility of return. Courage and sorrow push us forward. Love is irreversible, and we can't decipher most dark prophecies and visions. What happens to us is only what we wanted or only what we feared. The question is, what will win, desire or fear? The night will ring with music in the web of our fingers. The room will fill with light from the dictionaries we've brought. After all, everything depends on our ability to speak the dead language of tenderness. Light is shaped by darkness, and it's all up to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. Thank you for all the work and for this amazing reading. Thank you. Wanda and I are now working with Serhi on a new show, a jazz musical opera about Kharkiv. In Kharkiv, we started last November. We had a workshop and we created the first 2 acts, and we were supposed to do Act 3 in March, but then the war came to Kharkiv, and we hope to open the show at La MaMa in February 2023, and that said he will be with us at opening night at La MaMa. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Siegel Center.
Wow. Listen, what an impressive and strong program. We still have a couple of minutes left. One can feel the heartache, and especially of you and of course of everybody. And I think the testimony, it was just heartbreaking to listen to, right? The young actress, what she shared, and it makes it really, I think, so very, very, very real. It will be hard for Mariupol to come back, right? As a city, it looks like this is a true devastation.
It will have to be a new city built by the people who want to return to it.
So basically everybody except for the 25% she talked about people have left. There's nobody there. Buildings are burning.
Yeah. I mean, there's still many people who need to be evacuated, but there was a small part that was still being controlled, because we recorded some of this yesterday because she couldn't, this is when we could do it with her.
Yeah.
In terms of just connections where she was in between places. So
yeah, incredible. What a moment in time. Also you captured there, and there's an eyewitness report. And the poet Sadan, he is now in a city that is bombarded too. You said he's
today. It's really been. This is what we heard today from Ukraine, because we spoke with Valdemar just about 10 minutes before we went on. And that was the artist who was showing us his projects in Mariupol. Mm-hmm. And he said that he just heard that they were bombing Kharkiv. And every morning, whenever Zhadan posts, he likes to write on Facebook, because he's been really sort of trying to gather the spirits of Kharkiv and to keep the musicians and artists together and working to sort of preserve the city there. Because it's a very special city for Ukraine, of musicians and artists and people who are committed to this. And he posts a lot every day. And every time I see a post in the morning, I feel so much better, because it's just another day.
Yeah. You worry about him. This is clear, and one can only imagine really how this time has been for you and will be for you. We spoke today with the MaMa Yara Theater that said, we understood from our community, and they spoke about violence against the Asian American community. They said, right now it's really time for us to take care of our community. Maybe we have to do less theater, or theater is not what people need most. What do you think? What do the theater artists need? The ones in Mariupol, how could they be helped? What is helpful?
Well, I think, first of all, they all want to talk about what's going on, I think, and get that news out. And I think it's important to include other people in the projects of talking about all this. So it's not just all of us talking to all of us necessarily. So we're sort of almost feeling the other way, kind of we want to reach out to the world to talk about all of this. And in terms of one of our first pieces, Ralph Pena was in it, and it was a piece about Chernobyl. And I think that is kind of always been what I felt very strongly, that it's important to open our community to the world, because our community has been so closed, and to really, I so appreciate how much Wanda's put into all the translation efforts to sort of really, for us to be able to talk to the rest of the world. And through the voices of people like Marina and Sophia and Adham and everyone here today, but also our very diverse company of actors. Because I think it's very important for diverse voices to voice these ideas, and because they become then international, they speak to the world then, I think.
Yeah, no, Sophia, also really thank you for being there. Do you feel that your stay at La Mama is kind of overshadowed by that, or do you think it's a challenge, or it's something that one just have to deal with, or do you feel this is taking away something?
I think as an artist, we exist to show what's going on in the world. And it's really hard to, like, when people ask me or ask artists in general, is our art political? I don't think art exists without the world around it and what's going on. Like, you can't, like, whatever you make, whether that's film, dance, visual, performance art, whatever it is, theater, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because of what's going on in the world, whether you're even aware of it or not. So, the world is going to happen no matter what's going on in any individual artist's life. And as one of the current resident artists, I can't control what's going on in the world. I can only control what I'm doing with it, and like the activism and the art I'm creating. And I, of course, like many of us, want world peace, and I'm choosing to be a part of what's going on to help others, especially it's an honor that we are here safe in the United States right now, and that we're not dealing with a war on our own front, and that the theater artists there are dealing with devastation and their whole life has changed. We're pretty removed from it, and it's hard to even imagine what they're going through. But it's important to give them voices and talk to them and let them know how we can help them as fellow artists. Like, this is what's going on in your life. Okay, tell me, what can I do to be of service for you to get your story out there? Because journalism, we don't know what's actually being reported. We can only speak to the people who are there. And the power that we even have this connection through the theaters being connected is amazing, that we can bring their voices, because, they're not worried about putting on a play right now. They're worried about surviving and not being hit by a bomb. And we have the privilege to be able to give them the voice through ourselves as a vessel. So, whatever's going on in the world is going to happen. And I'm honored to be here and just, make my art, no matter what it's going to be, to help everybody in the process. So,
yeah, thank you so much. This was a great contribution. Thank you, Virlana, for putting this together. I can only imagine how much time and work went into that. Wanda, for translating. We are already segueing into our next